Okay, welcome to our fourth and final video in our series on the anatomy of the female reproductive system. Today we'll be covering the muscles of the pelvic floor. Basically, there are two layers. The deeper layer is called the levator ani. On top of that is the superficial perineal pouch. Now note that the superficial perineal pouch only covers the sort of front half, like the front triangle of the pelvis. Like you can see the levator ani peeking out behind it. So yeah, that's the deeper layer, the levator ani. And then on top of that, just in the front half, we're going to put this triangle, which is the superficial perineal pouch. So I'm just going to scroll between these two diagrams a couple of times so you really get a sense of how the superficial perineal pouch sits on top of the levator ani. Okay, so now let's actually learn the names of the muscles in those two layers. Let's start with the levator ani. The levator ani consists of three muscles, and as with most things in anatomy, the names make sense. So, for example, this first one starts on the pubis, wraps around the rectum, and then comes back to the pubis, sort of forming this arch around it. So it's called the puborectalis. The second one also starts on the pubis, but as you come down, the left and right halves then join together and attach onto the coccyx, sort of forming this Y shape. So it's called the pubococcygeus. And the last one starts out laterally on the ilium bone and attaches onto the coccyx, so it's called the iliococcygeus. And there you have it. The puborectalis, pubococcygeus, and iliococcygeus are the three muscles of the levator ani. Okay, moving on to the superficial perineal pouch. Now, you know in anatomy that the word transverse means across or horizontal, and there's two muscles here that go horizontally. There's this one here which sort of just spans across the middle, forming like the base of the triangle, and then there's all these little fibers that sort of form the inside of the triangle. So the one at the base of the triangle is called the superficial transverse perineal because it is more superficial than the other one, and so the other one's called the deep transverse perineal, the one that sort of forms the background or the inside of the triangle, the bit I've highlighted in green in here. Okay, and now there's two more. There's the ischiocavernosus and the bulbospongiosus. Now, for these two, I find the names make sense if you consider the equivalent male anatomy. You know that if you take a cross-section of the shaft of the penis, you will see these three big hollow spaces inside, two up the back and one in the middle down the bottom. These are the erectile masses. They can fill up with blood to create an erection. These two that go up the back are called the corpus cavernosum or corpora cavernosum in the plural. And as you can see on this diagram, they're not just in the shaft of the penis, they actually continue past that into the pelvis and anchor themselves on the ischium bone. And this erectile mass is actually coated in a muscle, and because it originates on the ischium bone and goes into the corpus cavernosum, it's called the ischiocavernosus. Now, the third erectile mass is this one, running ventrally along the underside of the penis. It's called the corpus spongiosum because it actually contains the spongy part of the urethra. And the corpus spongiosum, if you follow it back, actually anchors itself on the bulb of the penis. And this erectile mass is also coated in a muscle. And because it originates on the bulb of the penis and goes into the corpus spongiosum, it's called the bulbospongiosus. Now, women, even though most of them don't have a penis, still have these erectile tissues. They just converge on a point at the tip of the vulval vestibule called the glans clitoris. And just like in men, each of these erectile tissues has an overlying muscle, and they're named exactly the same as they are in men. So the ischiocavernosus and the bulbospongiosus. And that's it. That covers all of the pelvic floor muscles. So in summary, there are two layers, levator ani on the inside and superficial perineal pouch on the outside. The levator ani has three muscles, the puborectalis, pubococcygeus, and iliococcygeus, and the names literally all make sense. And the superficial perineal pouch has four muscles. The first two, the names make sense. They're the transverse muscles. And the other two, they're the ones associated with the erectile tissues. And their names make sense if you just consider the corresponding male anatomy. Thank you, everyone. So this does bring us to the end of our series on the anatomy of the female reproductive system. These videos aren't meant to be comprehensive or anything, so by all means go ahead and learn more. But hopefully it's been a good summary so that when you then go and watch your lectures and attend your dissection labs and do your own revision, things will make a little more sense with that added context. Feel free to leave a comment if you have any questions or if you feel I made any mistakes, and we'll do our best to address them as soon as we can.